the UK free speech delegation.
Westminster now.
Uh-oh.
Well, good afternoon. I'm used to talking to MPs down here, but we're joined by 3 US Republican congressmen who sit on the House Judiciary Committee. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this afternoon on GB News. Congressman Jim Jordan, if I can start with you, you are chairman of the committee. We're a long way from Washington. What has brought you over here this summer?
First Amendment to the Constitution. We're concerned about free expression here in the United Kingdom and in Europe, but we're primarily concerned.
So we're trying to help them. We're trying to get them back on track. Because, like, y'all getting ruled by a bunch of weird fucking Karens trying to import a bunch of people into your country. And you can't even talk about it, you get arrested. We're trying, guys. We're trying to help y'all out.
About the impacts your laws can have on American citizens. Under the First Amendment, American citizens enjoy 5 fundamental freedoms. Your right to practice your faith, your right to assemble, your right to petition the government, free press, free speech. I tell people all the time, the most important of those 5 liberties is the last one, our right to talk. Because if you can't speak, you can't practice your faith, you can't share your faith, you can't petition your government, you can't criticize your government, and you don't have a free press. That is the most fundamental right we have as free citizens. And when the government infringes on that, like we're seeing with the Online Safety Act, like we're seeing with the Digital Services Act in Europe, and then there's some spillover impact on Americans.
See, I'm going to tell you all the truth. The problem isn't really Real ID. It's the laws that make Real ID something that would make you get accountable for what you're saying. It's got nothing to do, really, like, Real ID wouldn't matter if you wouldn't get arrested for a tweet. The problem is the laws. Because people are already getting arrested for tweets now. They're getting arrested for them now. We don't have Real ID now. So how the fuck is it a problem? This is what we're going on. This guy for president? Yeah, and I'm telling you guys, like, if it was up to me, like, things would be a lot different. I tell you that. And they're trying to create things that spill over and other things. That was the point and why we were disagreeing with your tweet. Yeah, but like, I think that, and this is another thing why where there was like some dissonance between like the conversation we were having online about like the internet ID, is that I'm coming at this from the perspective of an American, but we have Australians and Europeans, especially people that are living in the UK, that don't enjoy the same privileges, or Canada, right, for that matter, that don't enjoy the same privileges and opportunities that we do in America to be able to speak our minds. So for you guys, Real ID on the internet is much more of an existential threat to your expression than it is for us here in America. And I understand that and I respect that. But my solution, again, is that you need to change your laws. I still think Real ID is coming. I think it's inevitable. And so when it gets here, you don't want to have these laws on the books. Privileges? Yeah, it's a huge privilege to have the First Amendment. It absolutely is.
Citizens, that is a concern. We had a witness last year in Congress. She was a journalist from Canada. She made a great statement. She said, free expression is the hallmark of Western civilization. The ability to debate, the ability to argue and have debate.
This is something that is so true and so core. Western civilization, I think, is built off of the backs of Greek civilization, Greek ethics, Greek philosophy. This is the premise of all of that. If you don't have free expression, you don't have Western civilization. It's that simple.
And have votes and settle disputes that way, because the alternative to that is frightening. So
yeah, you don't have Western civilization without free speech, period.
This is critically important, and that's why we're here.
And Congressman Fitzgerald, there's a row today because the science minister has been very critical of Nigel Farage. We've got this Online Safety Act that has come in. The Prime Minister...
The only reason they're making the Online Safety Act is to stop people from complaining about migration. They don't give a fuck about the kids. If they did, they would have stopped them from being raped from the people that are migrating. They don't care about them. They never did.
Yesterday, telling your president that there was absolutely no censorship with this, that it was all about...
It's a little bit harsh, but I'm just telling you the truth. It's obvious, isn't it? Yeah, duh.
Protecting children. Do you buy that?
It is.
I don't, and the American companies that we have been speaking to have laid out the case. Their legal teams have been battling on many fronts now over the last couple of years on just that issue of censorship and trying to kind of curtail whatever they're putting up online. So I think right now what you're going to see is a continued fight kind of step by step to make sure that this doesn't creep into America and is not something that we need to be worried about in the House of Representatives.
But Congressman Kiley, tech firms do have a duty of care, do they not? There are children accessing all sorts on the internet. As a TV company...
Suck my fucking... Fuck you. I'm so sick of hearing this. These are two completely different things. Protecting kids and having real ID on the internet is not the same as having a conversation about freedom of speech. Nobody is protecting someone's freedom of speech to upload sexual abuse material of children. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's advocating for that. Nobody wants that. The problem is that every single time that a conversation about this happens, it's constantly about, well, what about the kids? I agree that if somebody breaks the law on the internet, you should be able to find out and arrest them because they broke the law. Breaking the law on the internet doesn't mean that it's okay to do. That being said, the problem is the laws. That's the problem. It's not the internet. It's not the social media companies. It's the laws themselves. Because, again, they're getting these subpoenas by the judges because these people are violating speech laws. This would never be an issue if these people had the First Amendment. But they don't. It's the parents' fucking responsibility. There are 50 other things that we have extra government regulation on because you can't trust the parents to always make the right decisions for their kids. We have thousands of examples of that. I think that that's a very reductive argument. The real conversation here is about how this Speech Act and how these different types of legislation affect real average people. Freedom of speech does not equate to anonymity. No, it's two very different things. Asmongold trying to pull pirate software here. Don't die on this hellmate. Nobody agrees with this. It's not about agreeing with it or not agreeing with it. This is a literal fact and reality. It is a fact and reality that we have right now. There's no debating this at all. Yeah, it's not even a conversation. The problem with these countries applying these real ID laws isn't the real ID laws in themselves. It's the fact that the real ID laws make it easier to stop people from speaking their mind. And the core of that problem is not real ID, it's the fucking law. That's the issue. If you can't understand that, you're being stupid.
We are
problem.
guided by regulations the same for publishers. They're putting content out there. How do you deal with this in America? They do have a duty, don't they?
They absolutely do have a duty, and I think that narrowly tailored regulations designed to protect kids are appropriate and absolutely necessary.
Sure.
But what we're seeing with legislation like the Online Safety Act...
We already have that, like COPPA, for example, where like kids under 13 can't be on media already. Like this isn't, again, I'm not advocating for anything new. We already have this now.
The Digital Services Act in the EU is something very different. We are seeing a rising tide of censorship in the West. We see it in the EU, we're seeing it in the UK. We saw it in the US as well over the last few years, but we've turned a corner in our country in large measure thanks to the work of the Judiciary Committee under Chairman Jordan's leadership. And so we're here to dialogue with those who are fighting for this shared tradition between our countries here in the UK and in the EU, because this is, when it comes to a liberal democracy, this is the whole ball game.
You have no idea what's the point in the UK. Of course, in the UK, there's free speech. There's not free speech in the UK. You don't have freedom of speech in the UK. It's just not true. You're living a lie. Look it up and educate yourself.
You can't have a functioning liberal democracy without robust protections for freedom of speech.
You don't have freedom of speech.
We also had some horrific murders a year ago. There were terrible riots resulting from disinformation online. Now the police are looking at tweets, at things that putting on social media to try to sort of stave off further trouble. What's your view of that and policing tweets? Back to you, if I can.
Well, I mean, you look at recent history, it seems to me many times the biggest purveyor of misinformation, disinformation is the government. I mean, just look at during COVID in our country. I think just about everything.
Well, look at the way they handle the migrant stuff over in Europe. They intentionally obfuscate the race and the ethnicity of the people that are committing crimes, especially sexual crimes. And the reason why is because they want to mislead the public, and they don't want the public to know that there's disproportionately more of this happening with migrants. This is the truth. If you want to talk about misinformation and and again, why are they doing this? They are doing it to mislead the public on purpose. That's bad. Stop using Europe as a country, for the love of God. You're right. Poland doesn't do this. Poland is based. But as far as I know, Sweden does this. Spain has this problem. The UK has this problem. Ireland and Scotland, to a lesser extent, have this problem. Germany has this problem. It's a lot of Europe. I know that it's not all of them, but it's most of them. France has this problem. Yeah, I apologize if you're in one of the few remaining based European countries. Keep fighting the good fight, guys.
Administration told us about COVID turned out to be wrong. They told us that the virus didn't come from a lab. They told us that the vaccinated couldn't get the virus. They told us that the vaccinated couldn't transmit the virus. They told us masks worked. They told us 6 feet social distancing was based.
This would have never been a problem if they didn't ban people for dissenting. Obviously, science is never a settled situation, and they were telling people what they thought was best at the time, and they were wrong. But the problem is that whenever you're taking shots in the dark, and then people say, wait a minute, I don't know if you're aiming in the right spot, and then you ban them for that, well, then guess what? You're going to alienate and radicalize a lot of people, and I think that's what's happened.
On science, they told us that this was the first virus in history where there's no such thing as natural immunity. So when you look at history, typically it's the government who gives all kinds of information that is not accurate. And the idea that you're going to go after political speech, Kevin is right.
This is the real reason why it's happening. This is the reason why it's happening. And this is the big problem, is that these governments are trying to shut down people's political expression because it puts them at risk.
We don't want harmful material getting to kids, but there's a big difference between that and political speech and criticizing the government.
Yes,
for goodness sake. So we're very concerned about that, and that's
and they try to roll it all up into one in order to justify it. That's what's happening right now, and it's happening all over the world.
Again, that's why we're here. That's why we did our investigation last Congress, to point out the attacks on free expression and on free speech.
And Congressman Fitzgerald, J.D. Vance at the Munich Security Conference a few months ago upset quite a lot of people on this topic, talking.
No, you think and feel a lot. I've never seen you actually do some research. Why would I need to do research? I already know it. Yeah, I just come to conclusions, and then they're right. Pretty much every single time. Like, if it's such a bad idea to do that, then why do I keep coming out with positive outcomes? You really think that all these people coming from countries that have totally different laws and the ways that they treat women over there, you really think that there's not going to be an increase in bad behavior in that area? Especially when there's no vetting properly to make sure the ones that are acting in good faith or not? You don't need to have statistics for that. It's common sense. Like, I don't need to see 50 different studies to know if you put a wolf in a cage with 10 rabbits, there's not going to be 10 rabbits by the end of the day. I don't need to have like 50 fucking studies of this. I don't need to have a million levels of data and representation for it. It's common fucking a priori knowledge that every single reasonable person knows. Sorry. It's just the way it is.
About freedom of speech being suppressed, particularly in Scotland, with buffer zones. Do you think that that is sort of necessary for Europe and Britain to hear this sort of thing? And finally, what do you say to people that say, well, you didn't like it when Democratic, Labour activists went to support the Democrats. Why are you getting involved in our politics? What's your answer to that?
Yeah, I think Vice President Vance is right. I mean, there's absolutely been kind of a movement and a shift that's been going on. And it's not very obvious sometimes. It's something that you do have to kind of scrutinize and look for. But when you see it, you know it. And I think that's what the vice president was talking about.
Exactly. My friend asked me for a source when I told him that letting in hordes of unloyal migrants wouldn't be good for the social fabric of our country. Yeah. And also, by the way, the reason why people have such a fixation on trying to quantify everything like that without using their own common sense, it's not because I want you to understand that if you provided him evidence that this was the case, he would still deny it. They're only asking for evidence as a way to delay the inevitability of their opinion being wrong. They don't actually want evidence. They're just simply trying to find a way to refute your point of view.
And just finally, what do you say, Congressman Kiley, to people that say, why are you here getting yourselves involved in British affairs?
Well, we're first and foremost protecting our own citizens, because we've seen very specific examples of where suppressing speech actually impacts American citizens. And there's also this sort of globalizing effect, call it the Brussels effect, and certainly augmented by what's happening in the UK, where platforms are forced to change their policies in a pro-censorship direction that impacts citizens all around the world. And so at the end of the day, I think it's important that our allies, who we have so many shared values with, stand with us as we fight against forces that exist elsewhere in the world that are very much opposed to freedom of all kinds. And I think there's a lot more that we have in common in the way of values than divide us at this point. And I think these conversations are really healthy for everyone involved.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for talking to us on GB News Today. Really appreciate it.
Based.
Back to you in the studio. Clearly a tension between freedom of speech and keeping children safe. I expect
it has nothing to do with kids. Everybody can agree that weird stuff shouldn't be something that kids can see, and I think that most people are open to the idea of not letting kids on social media. This is a massive red herring. The real reason why they're implementing these laws for, the Online Safety Act, do you know who they're trying to make safe? The public fucking government. That's who they're trying to make safe, not kids.
We'll be hearing a lot about this in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, Catherine Forster there. Some very, very clever men, in my opinion. I think they absolutely nailed it on the head. Free speech, in my opinion, has been under attack in this country for a very, very long time. And the Online Safety Bill is the pinnacle of that tyranny. It really, really feels to me like Britain is heading in this abysmal direction.
And again, the problem is not the Online Safety Bill itself. It's the fact that it empowers existing laws that we have right now. Or sorry, not we, but the UK has right now, and other places like Australia has, that are already oppressive to people and they can't speak out. Freedom of speech and freedom of expression is, as I said, you cannot have Western civilization without freedom of expression. It is the bedrock of Western civilization. If you are going against that, you're going in a completely different place.